Hi, and welcome to Creating on PC. Today we're going to create an image that we're going to move into Cricut so you can cut it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a program called Inkscape. Today I'm using version 9.92. Um, you can download for free from inkscape.org. So we're going to start talking about some of the tools that are inside this vector creating document. So we have a pointer that allows us to grab objects and move objects around. You have a node that allows you to manipulate the picture and do some really cool stuff with controlling the image. Today we're going to be using a Bezier and the fill bounded areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with finding an image. So many years ago, I think back in 1998, I took a picture of a wall sconce. I'm not sure where this actually came from, but I have this old picture that I thought was really cool to make a great silhouette. So what we're going to do is we're going to right-hand click, copy image from my photo file, and then we're going to go back to Inkscape. When you click inside Inkscape, then you'll be able to hit your Control V for pasting, or you can go to Edit and Paste. Basically what it's going to do is going to drop the image in. You'll next go to Path and Trace Bitmap. You could also, if you wanted to use the hotkeys, you can do Shift-Alt-B, and this will bring up the same function. I personally like to have my edges sharp so I can, when we're using Cricut, we have some nice sharp edges. I don't want everything nice rounded off, and I like to remove the background so I don't have to worry about all the stuff in the background. And I like to see what my live preview is going to look like. As you can see, we've got a lot of the color and that kind of stuff in. You can adjust your threshold and back out or have as much color in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring as much detail as I can possibly bring in before it starts to really start to grain up inside my image. And then I'm going to click OK. What that's going to do is it's going to create me a vectored art that's going to be inside this picture. And as you can see, it did a tracing of the picture that I took. What I'm going to do is I'm going to discard this picture now because I don't need it anymore. And I'm going to come back to my original picture. I'm also going to close this over here because we're not tracing anymore. So what's going to happen is we have a picture that is now in vectored art, which vectored art really means that it allows point to point. As you see these points, it allows you to manipulate those points and control the picture. So I could do whatever I wanted with this picture. I could go in, move the nodes around. If I want to, I can go in and actually delete the nodes and do a lot of that. Well, with this particular picture, it'd be too much work to try to decrease and get rid of all these pictures. So what we're going to do is I really want to Cricut cut all the white spots. I want Cricut to cut it out of the paper or vinyl, and this is the image that I really want to be done. So what I want to do is I'm going to use my fill tool, and I'm going to click my fill, and I'm going to pick a color that I can easily track. So I'm going to pick yellow. Whoops. You see how that jumped? If you hit Control Z, Z is kind of like your quick undo. You'll be able to quickly undo whatever you're working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill my first image, and I'm like, yep, that's what I want. So if I want to change the color once I fill it, I can come back and I can change it to whatever colors I want to choose from. So I like to work in yellow. If you notice when we zoom in, if I hold the control button down and zoom in, see how it's not quite filling in all the spaces the way I like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my control and hold and zoom, use the scroll tool on my mouse and back up and go, not really happy with that. So I'm going to hit Control Z and kind of unfill all that. I could have clicked it and just deleted it using my pointer. But what I'm really going to do is see how it's not quite filling in. And I'm like, oh, well, that's because my settings are not where I really want them to be. I really want my threshold to be 100%, and I really want my grow to shrink, I really want to push those borders. So I really want to push it out maybe about 0.2. We'll try that and see. We'll zoom in. Let's take a look. When I click my fill tool, see how you have a nice clean border and it just overlaps just a little bit. That kind of gives me a nice feel of how I want the pieces to cut out. And then all of a sudden I'll just go in and I'll just start clicking away and filling all these areas up with yellow. This is what the Cricut Cut's actually going to cut out when we go to put it in. We could have easily gone in and done this a different way and really focused on the black pieces. But what I find is that then it's just all one piece of black. If I decide on my Cricut Cut that I want to do something a little different and have it maybe have this be different colored bark or whatever I want to fill with, then I'm fighting the machine because it's all one color. With all these pieces just overlapping and just being in here, I'm able to create pieces that I now can control in the Cricut Cut later on. So all these little pieces can be cut out of one piece of black, or I can just choose the colors and choose the patterns I want to use. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. The patterns that I want to use and be able to cut out the individual pieces in the colors that I want. So I could actually control all the little pieces parts that I'm really worried about filling in and having just look really good. If you notice how this kind of half filled in, I didn't have the full piece fully in view. So I can control Z and kind of come back and say, well, I didn't mean to do all that. You see how this half filled in? I could fill that object back in because I can fully see the image inside the picture. So it gives me a lot of control. You can always control Z. If worse comes worse, you can always choose an item and go. So you can click on an item using your pointer tool right up here in the upper left. You can click on it and go, yeah, I don't like that. Let me do that again. You can actually click it and then hit your delete button and you come back to your fill tool. You can actually fill it in. So it allows you to do a lot of cool little things that you can go in and kind of control these pieces. So I'm just kind of quickly filling in all these little items. Yep, I did it again. So I filled it in. Oop, it let me get away with it this time. But you kind of want to be able to see the full piece, or at least be able to see most of it in view when you're doing it. Missed a spot. See how I'm half doing that? Let's see if it cut it in half. Nope, didn't this time. Good. So what I'm going to do is just use my pointer and my control button. I'm scrolling up and down using vertical, and then I kind of do my left and right by holding the button down. But now we've got this big pretty piece of yellow filled in pieces. So when we really look at it, if we moved our picture, we have a really good idea of what it would look like. So this is what our picture would look like without it. I'm going to let that go and I'm going to hit Control Z, puts it right back. So what I'm going to do now is I need to create a black circle that's going to match this outer circle. So I'm going to kind of draw, see how that's all oval. So I'm going to click that, I'm going to hit Control Delete. Actually, I'm going to hit the just delete button. And I'm going to hold down the control button this time when I go to create my circle. Then you can see that it naturally just wants to pop a natural circle. So now I have this perfect circle. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit my pointer, which is going to give me the ability to lock this image, because really what I want to do is I don't want to lock the size, but I want to lock the shape. It's just a perfect circle. And so when I grab any of these tools, it'll allow me to evenly move the circle to make this perfect circle. So now what I want is this circle is really on top, and I really want it black. So what I'm going to do is click the black, turn it black, and I'm going to push it down below the yellow pieces that I just made. So, boop. So there you go. There is the there's my image. Now if I move this out of the way and just hit the delete button, boom, there is the so there's the picture that you need. And so what's going to happen basically is I'm like, I'm really happy with that. I need to do some things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight just the yellow pieces. What that does is it says, hey, all these pieces are together. Now, if I hit Control G, this groups them all together. So now when I grab it, it's not grabbing individual pieces, it's actually moving the piece within here. So now I can go and I can highlight both pieces as big groups, and now I should have two squares, which I do. So if you hit your Shift Control A, it will bring up this Align tool and allow you to align the picture left and also up and down. Looking at it going, yeah, I mean, that's centered and everything else. I just want it a little bit more over here. For me, visually, it looks better right there. If not for you, you can align it however you want. Just with the curves and everything else, I think for me, visually, I just like it a little off center. I could shrink this down if I want to. If I said, oh, the border's too big. I personally like the border, but I could shrink the circle down. I have my lock tool in place, so I don't have to worry about distorting the picture too much. And I can bring it up now and grab it and give me a smaller border if I want. And then I'm like, no, I really don't like that. So I'm going to go back to the original border. So I hit Control Z twice, and it's back to the original thing. At this point, I'm like, whoop, I really want to save this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my Save button, and I'm going to go to my folder for presentation, and I'm going to save this document as Bear, sorry, spelling counts, and save. So now I've saved this svg.svg folder, and now I can go to my Cricut Cut and actually open up my Cricut Cut in my design space. This is what happens when you open up your Cricut Cut and you've already logged in. I can go to my upload. I can go upload. I can hit browse, and since I know it's in my presentation folder, I can go and get my bear silhouette, and there are my two items. And I say two items because one's yellow and one's black, so Cricut Cut's going to know the difference between the two. So if you're working, so I'm going to highlight that, I'm going to hit Insert Images. And if you notice on the right, Cricut Cut is now making the necessary corrections and allowing the different layers to be able to be accounted for. So there's our picture with our black circle and our overlapping. So at any point I could go in and I could just say, hey, I really want this color to be a different color, and I want you to cut it as a different color. And I can go in and I can actually change the color if I want to whatever I want. So if you notice, it turned it purple, and it turned it purple here over on the right. But the image itself is not purple. And I can say, no, really don't want that. But it allows you to go in, and if you're cutting vinyl, it allows you to cut different shades of vinyl. If you're just cutting this out of paper, which is what my plan is with this, so it allows me to highlight the item, and I really want to make it a certain size. So I'm going to be using 12 by 12 paper. So I'm going to make this really big. So I want my ultimate image with the insert to be 12. Actually, I want it to be 11 across. So I can sit here and drag it all day. Since my lock is in place, I can just change that parameter to 11. Click over here, and it resizes it to 11 by 11. And you can see that here, 11 by 11. So now all I have to do is put the paper on my Cricut Cut, click the Make It button, and there's all the pieces parts. But there's a small problem. when I go to look at it, there's my perfect black circle that I really want centered, which I can move it over if I wanted to and center it on the paper. But my image, it's kind of all over the place. All my little images are just all over the place. And I really don't want that. I really want to just cut it out of the black. So I've made a mistake. So let me go back and really look at this and say, what did I do wrong? So image is going to load, and then I'm going to pull up the image. Just need to give it a second here. And there is a zoom tool that allows you to zoom out and see the whole image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it all again. I have all the images together, and I'm going to hit attach. Now what this did is, you notice all your pieces are now going to kind of be gone. Is that basically all that's going to be there is a one big black image with a whole bunch of cuts in it. And when you look at it, you're going to go, oh, okay, that just doesn't look right. But really, when you go to make it, you know you've done that. Now when you go to look at your image, you go, yeah, here's all the images. Here's the one cut I want out of my black, and I'll have my black silhouette made. And then all I do is I continue to load it into my Cricut cut, and then I would just follow the tools. If you're using heat treated vinyl, this is that point where you do go, don't forget, all heat treated needs to be reversed because you're going to cut it backwards. You would use your mirror tool, you would flip this over, now everybody is backwards, and it would cut it backwards for you automatically. You don't have to keep up with it. So this is how you would get a SVG created in Inkscape into Cricut Cut. Thank you.